bit my tongue and finally did it, folks. I sold some of my Tesla position today. So in this video, I want to break down the earnings that came out yesterday, what I think about the company, and then how many shares I actually sold. We're also going to take a brief look at Microsoft's earnings that came out yesterday, and then just quickly preview some of the largest holdings I have that have earnings coming up over the next couple weeks. And in the clarity of my transparency, I'd appreciate it. Hit the like button, or heck, even hit the dislike button. Probably helps the channel either way. But let's just welcome back, passive income investors alike. So to kick this off, let's just jump into Tesla's earnings really quick and just preview what the heck is going on, because there was so much hype building into this earnings report for them to get listed on the S&P 500. And heck, they finally did it. 4 straight quarters of positive earnings. But things here aren't nearly as good as everybody would like them to be, because as I told you guys, this is the most important earnings in the last decade, because we're finally in another recession, and the last one was in 2008. And we're finally seeing this recession impact all of these companies. Is the automotive revenue for Tesla in Q2 of 2019 was $5.3 billion. A whole year later, and the revenue is only $5.1 billion. Now, that is a fairly large decrease, which is truly a sign of the times that we are in. And we can see in 2019 that their total revenue was $6.3 billion for the second quarter, and in Q2 of 2020 here, folks, only $6 billion. And somehow with these unappealing numbers, the stock was still able to run up, not only this morning, but in after hours last night, in which I was getting a little bit worried.
They say we fully admit we've been wrong the last few years, and the shares tend to work, they add, when new things are coming. And Musk did address the topic of profitability last night. Here's what he said. But
we're not trying to be super profitable either. Obviously, we're like, profitability is like 1% or something, this 1 or 2%. It's not crazy. Last quarter was only 0.1%. So we want to be profitable. I think we want to be slightly profitable and maximize growth and make the cars as affordable as possible. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Jim, it's remarkable still for a company that has 1% of the global market. Market cap of Tesla is basically, what, 3 times the S&P auto sector?
Well, I think people, if you listen to the call, you think it's a big technology company. And so, therefore, it's right up there with some of the other technology companies that we follow. Did they execute better than Microsoft? No, but the expectations for their execution have never been higher, Tesla, and they've vastly exceeded it. You talk about profitability, but when you have demand, when the other guys are closing plants because they don't have demand, what it says is you're not selling what they're selling. You're making something entirely different from what they're making. And I know that we had Mr. Jackson on from Auto Nation, and yeah, they're selling a lot of pickup trucks or with 150s, whatever. This man is selling technology. And I think that he's talking about fully assisted, and then he's talking about driverless. I mean, he's thinking so much bigger. David, he's a big thinker. He makes us look like Lilliputians.
Now, I did not sell all of my shares. Obviously, many of you are aware I'm a long-term Tesla bull, but sometimes you have to wake up in the macro situation and just recognize there's way too much hysteria around this stock right now, because people are really hyped about self-driving, battery technology, the solar roofs, but the real problem behind all of this is none of that exists right now. And I would be expecting Tesla to trade at these levels if self-driving was fully autonomous right now, and then they were trying to get regulatory approval from the government to start actually testing it on the road, or heck, even if their solar roofs really took off. So I'm hoping there's some really tidbit hidden knowledge that's gonna, really help the stock out come battery day. But in the same notion here, folks, I can go through the rest of this earnings report, show you the new gigafactories they're building, the fact that their AI autonomous driving is now at level 4, expected to be level 5, fully autonomous by the end of this year. And again, really exciting stuff though, guys, but these are just not revenue generators for the stock right now. And like I said, I feel like the macro has priced in what Tesla's probably going to do over the next few years. And honestly, we're already seeing the stock drop pretty massively from where I sold it at. Now, before I get into exactly how many shares I sold, I just want to touch base on Microsoft, because this is a really good example of what happens to companies if they run too much into earnings here, folks. Because Microsoft had $38 billion in revenue, which was an increase of 13%. I mean, it's just incredible to think at the scale of Microsoft that it is still a bloody growth company. They had operating income was $13.4 billion, up 8%. The net income was only $11.2 billion, which was a decrease of 15%. And again, you have to keep in mind, we're in a bloody recession. These companies are spending money to try and keep everything clean. They're trying to help out towns, cities. All these companies are spending huge money to keep things clean, safe. We saw this with like Pepsi stock. So it's expected that they are spending money to keep things at a good baseline, even though their revenues were through the bloody roof here, folks. But again, what happens when companies run too much before earnings? They price in all of what is expected, which is exactly what we're seeing with Microsoft here, guys. With this smashing earnings report, the stock is down 4% as of this very moment. So in light of that, I'm also still a long-term bull on Microsoft. I love my Microsoft position. Won't be selling any of that, needless to say. But let's get into how many shares I sold of Tesla. So taking a look at roughly sometime, I think around 10 o'clock this morning, when the stock was really hovering between like 1550 and 1650, really fluctuating around, I was fairly fortunate to sell 4 Tesla shares at $1,601. So now I'm down to only holding 6 shares, but you're going to have to remember, I've been holding on to Tesla now for about 7 or 8 months, and I had 20 shares. I sold half of those shares at around $800 or $900 when I doubled my money, pulled out my initial investment, held the rest of them. But again, guys, you have to wake up to the reality that things are just getting way too out of hand. Stocks can't keep going up. And when everybody and their grandmother is typically getting really greedy about buying Tesla, you know what Buffett says, right? Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. And while people are greedy, I am not going to step down from taking some pretty healthy profits here, folks. This is actually a great time to remind you guys that if you want to join the #RichGang group, where I actually post my trades minute by minute when I do them, what I think about these companies, head on over to the Passive Income Educator, where you can sign up and not only get dozens of courses, we do giveaways once a month, but you're literally going to get 24/7 access to myself, the Six-Figure Mind of Matt Money, and 50 other investors that we literally have 24/7 conversations. I highly recommend that if you join this, I want you to turn off the WhatsApp notifications. It's the #1 reason people leave our group. Feel free to chime in when you want, or just listen to our own conversations here, folks. But nonetheless, what am I going to do with the Tesla money? Well, I'm not going to share that in this video. I'm actually going to save that for tomorrow's video when I do an entire portfolio breakdown, because I did a lot of shuffling around of some of my stocks today. I actually sold Facebook out of my RSP account. I actually used all of my Tesla money and my Facebook money already. I have been doing a ton of shuffling around today with all my stocks, just because I figured if it was time to sell Tesla, you know, it was time to get rid of Facebook out of my RSP. I ended up banking somewhere around, in total, I think $10,000, $12,000 that I've already reinvested. But again, I'm going to share all of that tomorrow. So consider subscribing if you want to catch tomorrow's video, when every Friday I do full portfolio breakdowns. But nonetheless, folks, what is the next most important thing coming up for me? Well, we're not out of earnings season. Now, earnings season has been fairly rocky already, with these companies already pricing in their earnings. So it's going to be really neat to see what happens when Apple posts July 30th. So that's a big one, as Apple, I think, technically is still one of the largest positions in my portfolio. We got Facebook coming up. Super excited for Facebook. And I still think Facebook is one of the most undervalued S&P 500 stocks, but I keep saying that. But then when you look at something like Tesla, which if it gets listed on the S&P, technically would have been one of the best S&P stocks you could have bought this year. But nonetheless, folks, I'm also very curious to see what happens with MO. Altria Group, one of my sin stocks, and that's coming out July 28th. The reason I'm fascinated by this is usually in recessions, people are smoking more. When people are locked down in recessions, usually more people are smoking, doing drugs, buying alcohol. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest catalysts for the MJ sectors. I think this might be where the turnaround starts for them. But nonetheless, after Altria Group posted terrible earnings because they had to write down their Juul investment, which just absolutely destroyed what their last quarter looked like, I still think we're going to see some pretty decent numbers out of this. So I'm very excited for this coming up. And then probably the one you guys are most excited for, I'm talking about Ryokan. A lot of our #RichGang group loves Ryokan. It's also one of my largest positions that I filled out this year. I currently have something like, I don't know, 20 to 25,000 sitting in this company at an average buy of 16, 17 bucks. And I'm actually going to be picking up a few more shares before the end of the month, once I get some dividend income coming in. And then finally, on the more boring side of things, the stocks that I really, really love are my utility sectors. Finally, for this month, we've got July 30th coming out with Southern Company's earnings. Southern Company, one of the largest utilities in the US. It's a very boring company to most people, but I love dividends. I love the utility sector being very safe, very stable during this recession, and probably one of the best sectors I hold in my portfolio, in my honest opinion here, folks. Other than that, the rest of my stocks will not be posting earnings till August. That's when we're going to have the Canadian banks posting earnings. That's when Northland Power, my other utility, will post earnings, and it's going to be really neat to see what happens when we get spat out on the other side of this earnings season, folks. But in light of all of this, I'd love to know what you think in that comment section below. Are you going to be picking some Tesla up on this dip? I'd love to hear about all of those. I've been very good lately at replying to your guys' comments. I'm doing my best to keep as caught up in this community as possible, because literally since I've lost my job when this pandemic has taken place, I've been living off my YouTube, my website income, and you guys have been the ones supporting that. So thanks so much. Stay cool, stay awesome, and I look forward to chatting to you tomorrow.